Welcome to Mapping the College Audition, a podcast where we explore the landscape of the college theater world and try to demystify this daunting audition process. I'm your host, Charlie Murphy, director of MTCA, that's Musical Theater College Auditions, and today we have got a creative, collaborative, curricular show lined up for you. Kikau Alvaro from the University of the Arts is on the show, and it was so fun to get to chat with Kikau. He is also a fellow podcaster, and I think a really great mind in all of this. And as you'll hear right at the top, we reached out to him for an interview for his position as a program director of the program at UArts. And before we could blink our eyes, he was promoted to interim dean. I think you'll get a lot out of this episode, and we'll really enjoy our conversation about University of the Arts' focus on new works, the skills involved in that kind of training, professional opportunities with new work. We talked about the experience of being smack in the middle of Philadelphia. We talked about keeping your relationships with professors beyond the college audition, having a human experience in your audition room, contrast in your audition, and Kikau's appreciation of a pop song. And Kikau also jinxes his and my favorite Survivor player who gets voted out days later after this interview. So for any Survivor fans out there, I'm sorry for the spoiler. You're going to see it in this interview. But before we get to this interview, just a bit of housekeeping. I don't think Meghan and I have made nearly a big enough deal over the fact that we have done a year of shows now. This is, I think, our 55th episode. Don't quote me on that. It could be 54th. We're somewhere in there. We're a little over a year. And we have some real exciting stuff lined up in the next few weeks. And then some really exciting stuff lined up next fall. But I am going to try to take a little bit of time for a summer break. I've been recording a little bit ahead, and I'm now producing them all as we see. And so I'm trying to do that a little bit ahead of time. But in order to try to give myself a couple weeks off, I'm going to go teach at places like the Performing Arts Project. I'm going to teach at Broadway Dreams. And then, of course, our own very exciting MTCA Summer Masterclass Week. I did want to say, with the year of it all, and I talk about it a bit in this podcast, actually, about how flabbergasted I've been in the reach this pod has had in its first year. We have reached 56 countries, and I'm not sure I could actually have named 56 countries before I saw this list, but I'm going to read it to you in rapid speed. We have reached the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Australia, Ireland, France, United Arab Emirates, Japan, Germany, New Zealand, India, Philippines, Bahamas, Indonesia, Costa Rica, Sweden, Netherlands, Chile, Russia, Spain, South Africa, Poland, Brazil, Mauritius, South Korea, Ukraine, Qatar, Mexico, Israel, Finland, Lithuania, Italy, Switzerland, Norway, Belgium, Malaysia, Iceland, Croatia, Greece, Chechnya, Turkey, Singapore, Saudi Arabia, Serbia, Oman, Lebanon, Cayman Islands, Kenya, Egypt, Denmark, Cabo Verde, Bahrain, Argentina, and Albania. And I did not make up any of those countries that I know of, at least. So just like a huge thank you to you, the listeners, for making this possible. And I just want to say how much we appreciate your downloads and your shares, your comments and your reviews that make the blood, the sweat, and all of the infant tears that you hear on the pod so much worth it. All right, so enough of that. We'll tell you more information about the break as we know the exact date of it. It's going to be, we still got a couple episodes more, so a couple more weeks before we take that break, but I'll let you know the details as we get a little closer. But for now, let's get to our interview with Kikau Alvaro from the University of the Arts. Well, we are so excited to have Kikau Alvaro on the pod today from University of the Arts. Kikau is a professional director, choreographer, and performer. He has a BA in theater with an emphasis in directing from San Jose State University and an MFA in musical theater from San Diego State University, as well as a conservatory certificate in musical theater performance from American Musical and Dramatic Academy, AMDA, in New York City. He's performed at places like the Old Globe, La Jolla, has directed and choreographed shows all over California and Virginia. He also was previously the Associate Artistic Director of the Virginia Repertory Theater and was the head of musical theater at Virginia Commonwealth University before becoming the Program Director of Musical Theater at University of the Arts. He is also our first professor who's also a podcast host, where he hosts the podcast Carefully Taught with Matthew Teague Miller. University of the Arts is located in Philadelphia, PA. They offer degrees at BFA in acting, BFA musical theater, and BFA dance. Kikau, how are you doing? Welcome on the pod.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for asking me to join the podcast.
It's truly a pleasure. So before, I know we gave a little bio there, but before we jump into UArts itself, let's just talk a little bit about how you came to the position that you're in.
Yeah, so and I do want to do a little bit of a correction here, and
Oh, yeah.
it's a sort of recent correction, which is I did begin as the program director for musical theater, but have been at least temporarily promoted into this interim dean position for
Oh.
University of the Arts, and we have an interim musical theater program director who's a great friend of mine, Jacob Brent. We're currently working together in this moment as they are going through a little bit of a transition. But we're still excited to be here. I am still sitting behind that table
Mm.
running auditions and trying to have the very best talent come to Philadelphia and come to UArts.
We love starting a pod off with a promotion. That's great.
Just a quick promotion.
But so tell me a little bit about that journey to becoming program director and now to interim dean.
Yeah, so I was in Richmond, Virginia, where those previous positions were Virginia Commonwealth University, Virginia Repertory Theater. It was an amazing job to have, but was looking for uh, the best way to put it might be just a higher ceiling, looking for be a little bit closer to some bigger projects that are
Mm-hmm.
happening in both Philadelphia and New York. So for me and my husband Derek, it was an opportunity for us to like kind of move up to this space. We were also just really excited about the program. The I'm you're going to hear me on this podcast refer to this as the Bryn School, but it really is the Ira Bryn School of Theater Arts that is a part of University of the Arts. So
Mm-hmm.
we can say University of the Arts or the Bryn School. Essentially, I just was excited about every aspect of the program that they were offering and saw myself sort of being the perfect right person to take this job and to take this job on. My interests, particularly in new works, my interests in education and
Mm-hmm.
forwarding and talking about like musical theater pedagogy, which is what Maddie and myself talk about on our podcast. I just sort of saw it all happening here at UArts, here in Philadelphia, and so far I am correct. So yeah, it just was a matter of math. It just was like it was the right time, the right program, and I saw so much opportunity here in the city for me to take.
As so many things in musical theater, a matter of math. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about what that. So now, in your experience as program director, and now as it's beginning the interim dean position, tell me a little bit about what does a UArts student feel like to you, or maybe specifically, what does a Bryn student feel like in terms of the kind of students that feel like they're a great fit for your program?
Yeah, I love this question so much because I think that it is my personal goal and our goal as a school to truly serve our students. So it's kind of a fun question because each year during auditions, we see a brand new group of folks that we're inviting to come and join us, and they each come with their own individual needs and specifics. So not that we necessarily craft, you know, the classes or the curriculum to the individual, but we take it into account. We take in the individual needs and the constant and continuous shifts that we're seeing in our young people. And so I would say that if I'm talking about the students that are currently here, they are creative, they're collaborative, they're engaged, they're curious.
A lot of C words. I'm
We
seeing a lot of C's.
a lot of C words, a lot of C words. They are, I'll just work my way through the alphabet. Um,
They're
they are,
dastardly. They are
yeah,
effervescent.
the musical theater students take acting classes with the acting students. We also have other programs, the design and technology, as well as DPP, that is directing, playwriting, and production. I share all of that to say that students, when they come here, don't just stay in their silos. They
Mm-hmm.
actually really are engaged with other folks in other areas that can support their education. So it's like an interesting thing about being a Bryn student or a UArts student, which is that you don't just stay in a studio
Mm-hmm.
and sing songs. You actually are like engaging, working on brand new works, being in plays, and of course enjoying the amazing things that Philadelphia has to offer. So students that are interested actually in situating themselves in the middle of a city right across the street from the beautiful Kimmel Center. All of the touring productions come through.
Mm-hmm.
We also are very close to places like the Walnut Street Theater, the Wilma Theater, and have a relationship with a MFA program called Pig Iron, which is also sort of situated in another theater. We are
Mm-hmm.
just right in the middle of this really exciting space. And so I would imagine that that is also a something that young people interested in coming to schools think about. What does my day look like?
Totally.
What am I going to do after school? Well, you're going to go right across the street and see that tour, or you're going to have an opportunity to be in a show that's in the area.
I love it. And before we get too much to the after school side of things, though, tell me a little bit about like just curricularly, what are the
Mhm.
4 years like? And if you want to talk about sort of what they have been, but also if there are any changes or shifts, sort of what is the vision for freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year?
Yeah, that's great. I love this conversation. I really do, because it is the thing that is makes a school different from another school. So just, I want everyone to go out there and do their research and
Mm-hmm.
listen to this podcast and take these steps. We are a 4-year conservatory style BFA musical theater program.
Mm-hmm.
So we are a student would be taking at the very least 7 semesters of voice lessons, private voice lessons.
Mm-hmm.
There is a dance progression which begins with ballet, jazz, tap, and goes on to dance styles and dance auditioning, partnering, etc. We have a progression from the very beginning that is just musical theater performance. So you would be taking the musical theater performance 1 through 8 while you are here. And each of those is a step from foundations to learning about different styles to getting deeper into conversations about auditions and roles,
Mm-hmm.
specific roles. For example, in the junior year, we're both building your audition book as well as casting you. We are spending time with you and making sure that you have the opportunity to do the roles that are right for you. And that you are excited about. And then in that senior year, we are in those MTP courses. We're preparing you for the outside world. We're prepping you for your showcase, and then doing a culminating capstone project, which is a cabaret performance. So you are ending sitting on a stage on your own with a pianist and other musicians, performing work that you are inspired by and as yourself. I mentioned this already, but you are also following an acting progression as well, with folks that are just here to pursue acting,
Mm-hmm.
which includes contemporary scene work, classics, as well as opportunities to learn about and do TV and film.
Mm. And then you mentioned, sort of the interaction of different schools at UArts. Tell me a little bit outside of the theater school. What kind of opportunities do I have? So would I have the ability to take classes in different kinds of schools? Is that required? How does that work if I'm a UArts student?
Yeah, I mean it is totally possible is the best way to put it. So much of that, as I mentioned, is about getting to know the students here who are specifically interested in pursuing dance as like either a minor or as just a form of passion.
Mm-hmm.
Can absolutely take classes in the dance department. Or we have lots of people here who come with experience in regards to like music skills and an interest in performing, but also composing or
Mm-hmm.
in being a musical director. And there are lots of opportunities for our students to do that as well.
We just had Joey Contreras on the pod, who was a musical theater major, who's obviously very interested in composing, and that was really a big part of his education as well.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting thing is you don't know, um, you don't really necessarily know what is going to come of all of
Mhm.
these skills, but you also know and should pursue those things that you are passionate about, and I promise it will add up to something.
Uh-huh.
There is going to be the right job for you, the right position for you, for sure.
Well, and we've talked about that a lot, but right now, because as majors are catching up to what interests are, right now musical theater becomes a large umbrella that captures a lot of different actual career interests, right? There are people who go to musical theater school to be on Broadway specifically, but some of our students say, I kind of want to be an Instagram star, or I kind of want to be, and we go, and you can't quite yet go to school to be an Instagram star. So they're like, I love singing, I love dancing. I'm not sure how I'm going to use these skills, but I want to do something. And maybe it's going to be movies, maybe it's going to be Instagram, maybe it's YouTube, maybe it's whatever the new thing is 10 years from now. But
You know, the interesting thing is, I've seen some incoming or prospective students who actually are sharing their social media with us. So we actually had somebody who came to our auditions who shared the number of followers that she has, and the like. Here's the handle, and here's the thing, and it's just an interesting uh, era that we are in. That
I mean, it's certainly true in the business, though. It's certainly true. You're trying to get a Broadway show. It doesn't hurt to have 10 million followers. It doesn't hurt.
doesn't hurt to have it. I mean, and even smaller, if I'm trying to get a show just started, a new work, and I want to get impact or faces into
Mm-hmm.
that reading, like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that one.
For sure. For sure. Let's talk. You're talking about the different disciplines. Do you feel like in the three stools of, at least of musical theater, I keep saying three stools when I mean the three legs of the stool. In the three
Yeah.
legs of the stool that is musical theater, do you feel like you focus more on one or the other? Is it really all three equally? How does that interaction work for you?
Yeah, I love this. I think this is part of what has evolved. I think that a musical theater artist today, when we fast forward to the industry, we do need to prepare them in all aspects, right? You're a graduate from a BFA program. There's an expectation that you know how to sing what's on the page. You
Mm-hmm.
also know how to interpret a song and um, to give it your own spin. You also can, walk through space. Using opposition with hands, and so it's that is interesting. It's like my response to that is our efforts as a school is to make them as equal as possible, but we know and we understand that someone might come with a little bit more dance training and they want to spend time and emphasis on the other aspects. We are here for that. Someone in the opposite is an amazing singer. They've been singing since birth, and they are really interested in spending some time in our movement areas and the dance space so that they can get the information that they need to work, to have a career. um, and I think I think if there's any distinction to that or to what we do here at UArts, there's a real emphasis on doing new works. And so I like to think of it like we prepare you to to either write your own work or to pick up a script that has not been interpreted, to be able to read that sheet music and bring a character full bodied into life, to life for an audience.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that we sort of hang our hat on.
And I think you mentioned this before, but the dance classes in terms of like leveling, if I'm a freshman through senior, it's going to be sequential basically no matter what. I'm going to go take, you said 1 through 8 dance wise.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you would take actually, if someone does come with a little bit of experience, we would actually start them at like level 3, let's
Mm-hmm.
say, and then kind of take it from there. Someone who is just starting out, we'd start at 1, and we would work our way through. It's possible in our curriculum to repeat some classes, and we actually love that. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's possible for you to um, desire and take 3 and 4, and then repeat 3 again if that's what you're interested in, or repeat 4 again.
That would have been me taking 1 again and
Yeah,
again and
yeah.
again
1
until I
again,
got it.
again,
I'll
again.
take
Yeah.
ballet 1 again, please. I'm still working on that plie. What about for our actors, and especially maybe our actors who are curious in the musical theater world, who want to take an acting training, get a BFA in acting, but are interested in some of the singing and dancing training as a potential, maybe I would do some of this too. How does that work at your school?
Yeah, I mean, that would be something that we would encourage you. This is the kind of thing that if that is you, you should just make sure that we you meet with us, that we see you, that we know that there is that we can make some room in classes for you. It is typical for someone to have these interests. Any of our students are able to audition for our musicals, for the musical performances that we have throughout the year, a series of festivals, as well as our Polyphone Festival, which is something that happens in April, May, that is a brand new works festival that is made up of, or can be made up of, casts that come from both acting and musical theater. So there is lots of opportunity for a student who just might be interested, a student who might want to even consider getting a minor in musical theater, which is something that we offer. And if their focus is in something else, but have an interest in pursuing musical theater as well.
You've mentioned these new works a couple of times. What does that look like? So certainly in terms of the new work opportunities, it makes sense. So I'm happy to hear more about that too. But what does that look like in terms of kind of curricularly? Like, how am I being trained to interact with new works? Or how does that affect the training as you go? If this is kind of a focus or something they're really interested in preparing them for, what does that mean in terms of how do I need to train differently for new works maybe than I would for classical work?
Yeah, I think it has to do with skills, right? So, like, we think of at each of these levels, each of these classes I've talked about, we're sharing with you ways through. Let's just take the idea of music skills, or um, learning how to read sheet music. We, of course, are putting music in front of you, and you are interpreting and looking at that music and can sing what's on the page. But there is an emphasis here and a need here for a creation of a character inside of that music, and to sort of look at this piece of sheet music as fresh, right? So whether it's something that was from the golden age, or from maybe even contemporary musical theater, um, the skill is transferable in those ways. But can you pick up something that is completely brand new, written just yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
or just before this rehearsal, and both sing the notes on that page and interpret it? It is a different skill set, and our students have an opportunity to practice it a lot.
And would it tend to be that they're working with more like young professional new work writers and directors, or is it also people in the program who are creating some of this new work? So it's like, would it be also similarly, undergraduate writers and undergraduate directors?
Yeah, it's actually both. That's a great question, because it's both. We have in our DPP program I mentioned earlier, those folks get to their senior year and they get to produce, in a senior festival series, um, either works that were created by others or their own pieces that they've written, curated, musically directed, whatever that math is to get them there. And so they're interacting in that way. And then for the Polyphone Festival, which has its own separate artistic director, they are curating a season of emerging, sometimes the kinds of musicals that are on the fringe. This last year, we did a new musical called Crimson Lit, and we also did one called Dear Mr. C. Uh, Dear Mr. C was written musically by a Jonathan Larson Grant winner, and they were just looking for the next step. So this is they have had previous readings. They're bringing it here for our students to interact with. That gets a full production on our main stage, and as part of this larger festival, we bring these artists here. We're close enough to New York and to other big cities. We put them up. We have a whole rehearsal process. Through that rehearsal process, there are changes that are happening every week. We get them to a place, which is not necessarily this like final end result, but like here is what it's going to be for this run, and then they go on to other things. We've had artists like Michael R. Jackson, like Dave Malloy, try some pieces out. So and then, as you know, we found out this week, here they are getting Tony Awards and Pulitzer Prizes and snap, snap, snap. So That's right. We are a step for them, and we give an opportunity for our students to work directly with them, and also for them, the artists themselves, to see their work in this form before it moves on to the next spot.
I think that's really well articulated, especially in terms of the different kinds of a collaboration that actors have with, when it's your professor and you're working on an established role versus when it's a student who's a playwright too, and they're figuring that out, versus when it's a professional, just figuring out what it is to be an interpretive collaborator in a piece of new work, right? I think there's a lot of stumbling blocks that you can run into if it's not something you've practiced, if you're doing it in the professional world, where someone goes, that's not quite the feedback I'm looking for right now at this moment, or it's not, but it's hard sometimes to
Right.
know how can you be an interpretive collaborative artist as opposed to being like, let me write that show for you, or let me do it. We're like,
Right.
good note, but.
Yeah, and I think that that's right. I think that because we have these different levels, there's so many opportunities for our students to interact in whichever way they see themselves. It's completely possible I identify as an interpretive artist. I'm a director, I'm a choreographer. I don't write my own anything,
Mm-hmm.
right? There is a script that's in front of me, and I bring that thing to life as best I can. And when and if the playwright is sitting there, I've worked on several new works. I can ask questions of them, but ultimately, I'm sort of sticking to the script.
Mm-hmm.
The students that are cultivated here are really able to be a part of that process and ask questions and be, in most cases, the first person to sing this
Mm-hmm.
material that, outside of a concert, to actually put it into some sort of context. And that is a very meaningful thing. Our students are then able to immediately go into something that is a new work, or approach, let's say, a classic, let's say a Guys and Dolls,
Mm-hmm.
as if it was a new work,
Mm-hmm.
and say, here's my interpretation of it.
Mm-hmm.
Here's how I'm going to do it. Here's how I'm going to approach it.
It's so cool. You mentioned a little bit about this with Showcase, but tell me about how do you prepare, especially your seniors, let's say, to kind of launch them into the business itself? So what does that kind of senior through graduation process look like for you?
Yeah, so they take classes like professional prep and business of theater, things that kind of connect them. Um, uh, a little bit of that is building your book. A little bit of that is just learning about the industry. I think that, and this is true, I think, everywhere, which is a decentering of New York and decentering of Broadway. So many of our folks want to pursue that, and we're going to totally do that. And we're also going to give you information about what it would be like to move to Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
or to go to LA and kind of pursue film in a different way. We have had several alums take that path and be very successful in the TV and film area
Mm-hmm.
specifically. And Yeah, I mentioned the cabaret performance. Like, so to me, I think being a senior, there is something about sitting on a stage with the heat of that spotlight, with some musicians, be it a accompanist, piano accompanist, or a little drum kit. I'm just sort of painting this picture of, and then what,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, and then what are you singing? What are you talking about? What's important to you? I have found that this generation in particular is not interested in just performing in something. They want to perform in something that means something,
Mm-hmm.
that is a fact. And we then give the authorship, give the autonomy back to them in that senior year, and say, great, like, here you go. What do you want to sing? What
Mm-hmm.
excites you? What How do you want the world to see you? And then through our showcase process, we think of that as much more of an introduction, like an introduction to the world, an introduction to um, agents or managers, or the various markets that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
These last couple years, we've had to do virtual showcases, and they have been extremely
Mm-hmm.
successful. The amount of clicks and views and responses, it is the sheer number of responses is so big, that it just makes each click and each face that I'm seeing in my mind right now that much more excited.
Mm.
And also they can take those recordings and put them on or connect them to their own websites,
Mm-hmm.
do their own thing with that beyond. But it is, at least for me, an amazing place to sort of see as a culmination of their work all together in one place. And hopefully we will be able to do an in-person version of that soon.
Knock on wood. Yeah. I mean, there is the power of digital. I was thinking this the other day of like this podcast now has reached more people than any individual show I've done. And I think now all the combination of all performance I've done live now at this point, which is crazy, and it's reached in a different way versus if you're in the house, and I look you in the eye while delivering a Shakespeare line. It is a different kind of connection than you in your ears right now, working out or whatever you're doing as you're checking this out. But like, it is just amazing. I mean, we've reached people all over the world, and just the tonnage of every country, all these people that we just would never interact with my voice or with this content, of course, now catch it. And I think that really it's a lesson of the past 10 years, really pre-pandemic, but sort of was glommed on specifically as this happened, that like, as an actor, it is so valuable to be like, this is my website with me doing stuff. If you didn't catch it at Showcase, here it is. It's just so helpful.
And I could say, as a producer in my previous position as associate artistic director, I watched all of these videos. We cast people directly from them.
Mm-hmm.
I did a production of The Wiz, and we found this amazing artist who was graduating the following week from Ithaca, and it was just this video, and it was like, I didn't even meet her.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even need to talk to her. I was like, this is it. This is our Dorothy, full stop. I'm always excited by that story because I'm like, people don't believe me that it wasn't, and this was pre-pandemic, this wasn't an in-person experience. This was we need to get this person on a plane right now because they are it.
It's so funny. I love that story because we always talk about the relationships with professors that go beyond the audition process. And what a great example of like, this is a professor who runs a program and who directs professionally. So even though this person went to Ithaca, they still got cast. That's still, just because they didn't have to go to the school, that's still a relationship that could be cultivated theoretically.
That's right. Because every, especially regional theater and other theaters know, I mean, this is where that emerging talent is.
Mm-hmm.
If you are, so brave as to stand up and sing and be vulnerable and do your thing and then also pursue it, like in a university, it's like, I am ready for you. I know that you've done the work. So you are all that much more of a higher, I don't know, commodity to me. Mm-hmm. if you've completed a program.
I love it. What do you feel like, I sometimes ask this question as what's the best kept secret of your school? Maybe it's also just like, what do you wish people knew either before auditioning, before they applied, or maybe when they're making decisions to attend a school? What do you wish that they knew about your school that not everybody walks in knowing? This is true of UArts.
Yeah, I love that. I think that there's like two answers to this. One, we've done some in-person and some virtual auditions, and it's an interesting thing because we find ourselves in the virtual auditions talking a lot about what Philadelphia is. It's sort of like, but really, like, I need you to picture what this is. When you're walking from your dorm and you're going to class, it's not just like a normal patch of grass. We're talking about like an energy, a vibrancy, an electricity that then your work is informed by. You are singing a song in your studio classes, and you are just informed by the honking horns and people screaming at you. I mean, it's like, I look at it as all a positive thing because you can't deny this level of electricity. So I just want to say that for those that are able to come and visit in person, they know what we're talking about. And it's actually a pretty short, little opening speech. It's like, right, I mean, isn't the city cool? Great. Let's move on. The other thing is that I think that as many programs are evolving, ours is evolving in a way that has a real connection to the industry at large, right? We're not afraid to have conversations that are being had in the larger industry. We do not protect ourselves as this bubble. We have both working professionals as your professors, literally in a million shows here, perhaps even in larger shows, taking breaks and coming back, but they are working. Every single person
Mm-hmm.
is doing the thing, as we say. We also are not afraid to bring guests in who are, guest professors or even guests into um, small conversations. Broadway designer Jeff Sugg, Heather Christian. We just had Martha Donaldson Wheatley and Sharon Wheatley, who is currently in Come From Away, come and talk to us about being in this relationship as a performer with a major production stage manager on Broadway. We also had the amazing and effervescent Kristen Chenoweth and Mary Mitchell Campbell do a workshop for our students. I'm saying that to say we're open to the world.
Mm-hmm.
We're not some closed off little space. And then, so with being in the world, we're having conversations about social justice. We're having conversations about what it means to be an artist today. And we are, I've taken great steps towards bringing intimacy, theatrical intimacy education,
Mm-hmm.
specifically with Laura Reichard, Chelsea Pace, into our school. So we're looking at consent-based learning. We're looking at boundary practice from day one.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that I know a lot of schools like or would love to do, but we are able to do it, and we're just like not messing around because we are human beings first, and this is what we need in order to prepare our students and actually so that they can hold space for themselves when they're in rehearsals.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
it's an exciting thing.
not to put you too much on the spot, but are there any of course we haven't had like broad sweeping answers and conclusions that solved everything, but what has come out of some of those conversations in terms of like, especially like what it means to be an artist in the world today, maybe in relation to social justice, but just in general as like, we definitely can all feel a real shift. And I've talked about it with all of our artist guests as well, how the world is changing. The next generation has a different view of art and a different view of the way that we work and the different view, and I think a lot of it really to the positive, but I'm not sure that we feel like we have defined, oh, this is what's different or and I don't need you to give the full definition, but anything that's come out of those conversations that you go, this has shifted our program to be a little bit more like this, or this has allowed us to realize this is a different perspective we could have on things.
Yeah, I think, when I was training and I was told by my professors that it was this or that was that, I identify as a AAPI. I am half Filipino, half Hawaiian. Professors, teachers of mine just wanted me to kept me in a box. I felt like I wasn't seen by the industry. There weren't roles out there specifically for me,
Mm-hmm.
and if anything, I think that it's the shift has happened. The shift has been that we are listening to the kind of art that our young people joining us on this journey are interested in making. We are not really dictating or telling them what they are or what they have to be, but rather saying, let's kind of explore all of these avenues. Have you sing this song? Have you work on this piece and see what comes of that? I think that is the difference. There isn't this pressure for our alums, or who are about to graduate, to do anything more than what they are interested in doing. And this is about this generation. This is about how the pandemic, how we've all responded to the pandemic and decided if we wanted to opt in or opt
Mm-hmm.
out of something. The artist today is interested in fully opting in when it suits their boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
to create and to pursue art. It's not some ending goal. It's actually just like the thing. It's so we think of it like we're passing on these tools without bias.
Mm-hmm.
Here are these tools. Here is this energy, and we wish you the best of luck. And we hope that this, or the transferable skills that we have given you, can bring you the life that you want,
Like, may you use
and
it
nothing
better
more.
then we used it or whatever. It's like, here's some tools I
That's
have.
exactly
Can
right.
you can build something even better than what we were able to build. Yeah.
That's exactly right. It's listening, and it's just trusting that they know what they're interested in doing and what they want to do, you know?
My last question in this section is just, so as you know, we just passed May 1st and people are making decisions. Some students, I imagine that you accepted, joyfully said, yes, I want to come to the school. And some said, I'm going to go to a different school. Do you have a sense of like when students said, oh no, UArts now actually isn't for me? Why did they say that? What did they give as a reason? Or, could be, of course, I like the school better, but was there ever something where they say, here's why I think it's not so much a fit for me?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of connected to what I just said about listening to them, because I don't want to, I am not in the practice of lying to anyone or lying to folks when they're coming in person for an audition. I am going to answer exactly what you want. Exactly answer the question that you have for me, regardless of if that finds you going to one of these other amazing programs or coming to us. I think that it's a big choice and a big decision, and I just want you to have all the information. So it's also fun because I'm the vice president of conferences for Musical Theater Educators Alliance. So I am friends with all of these other program directors and all these other leaders in other spaces. And so we talk often, like, it seems to me like people are going to this school or going to that school. And the interesting thing is it isn't necessarily about any one thing. But uh, if anything, it's about the decision about the greater school or the community. It's possible what I said as a selling point as Philadelphia, that is not appealing to someone, that they're more interested in a more rural JMU experience or in a even more rural Shenandoah experience, right? Like that, these are the complete opposite spectrums of what our schools have to offer. And then when you look closer at our curriculum, um, they just might not want the, as I said, as a selling point, the new work. They might be interested in looking at more traditional musical theater as a regular part of their seasons. That is not something that we right now are holding as the highest regard. We want to prepare you for any and all jobs rather than sort of put you in a box.
I love it. All right, we're going to take a short break, run some ads, and on the back end of the break, we're going to talk about the audition process at UArts. So we're back in a flash. We are back with Kikau Alvaro from the University of the Arts, and we're going to talk about the audition process. So in short, I'd love to start with, like, what do you think makes a great audition for you? What do you see and you go, oh, that's just what I'm looking for?
I'm not sure if this is the right answer, but it feels like what I want to say, which is that I am seeing having a human experience in the room with someone. And that is both in the initial hello, in the performance, and in the maybe post question interview section. That I can see that student, that interested person coming to our school. And if for some reason I can't see that because they might not either know what they really want to do, or there might be a better program that might serve them, that's when it sort of falls outside the line. So a human experience, someone that comes in and is interested in joy and being there and present in the moment. That's really exciting to me. Someone who, when I say, hi, how's it going? And they actually respond like, well, or like, kind of weird. Like these, I love that, because that is, okay, great. Then that means when you do come here in the fall, we can have the basis of a human relationship.
I love it. Well, I'd love to hear, just like, in terms of the practice of presentness, what advice would you give to a student if you're going, okay, I want to be there and have the human experience. Probably I'm struggling with some nerves as I walk into my audition. It's very excited, right? How do you sort of suggest that a student, finds that place of being able to have a human experience?
I think it's a couple things. I think everyone just needs to breathe. I think you need to take that breath before you even come into the room. Perhaps even take that breath when you come into the room. Like, there is that sense of urgency or time requirement, but there really isn't. Like, if you need a second, take a second. Um, and I think taking that breath, remembering where you are, um, really looking up and looking into the eyes of
Mm.
the adjudicators, I think that there's something about that it's like, no one is a robot. You are not a robot. We are not a robot. Um, and I think breathing is helpful because it just is
Mhm.
like, okay, here I am. It will not completely eliminate your nerves, but it will um, just once again remind you that we're here, and that what we're interested in seeing is that authentic self. And um, and when we're hearing you talk before or afterwards, um, we're not interested in like some canned answer that you may have given to previous schools, but we're just interested in like, here's the question that we're asking, and like, what is your real response to that? We know that people come from many different high schools and different backgrounds, or might even be transferring and comes with their own experience, and we want to hear and see that during this time. um, you can't be something that you're not. So there's no reason to like pretend.
Hmm. And are there any, other than maybe a canned interview answer, are there any other kind of red flags that makes you go, oh, this person's not present in the room or having an experience? Or really any other red flags that just bother you in an audition where you go, this person might not be a UArts student if I'm seeing a lot of this?
Yeah. I would say, I mean, maybe this is a little deeper, but it does, what you're choosing to perform, what your song choices are, it means something, right? It's such a short, limited period of time. So when you are choosing something that might not be I don't know, suitable for your voice or energy or type, or, we're no longer existing in types, but like, if there is not really an understanding of what you are or who you are, similar to my first answer, then it's difficult for us to kind of wade through it. It's such a short period of time that choosing material um, is important. And I think we say in our materials, it's like we're looking for contrasting, which is fine. That you can interpret that however you want. Um, I would say that I have found particular interest in folks that choose pop songs as their other song, as just being a great way for us to see who they might see themselves in the world as, or even original songs. That has happened as well. Those are always kind of lean in moments like, so when someone is, to answer your question, when someone is choosing something that feels prescribed to them, that doesn't really fit their energy or vibe, it always feels like, oh, okay, like maybe this isn't the right fit for us.
Totally makes sense. What about, so you do not pre-screen, right, in terms of the auditions,
We don't.
but you do accept video auditions as maybe as a last resort after the audition experience has happened?
Yeah, we will. Now, this is part of the process that is a little undergoing some construction, but we are interested, even if you are coming here in person, for you to send some sort of video.
Mhm.
We do a wait list, and we have found in going back to that wait list that it's just a little easier when we're able
Mhm.
to reference videos. So
Mhm.
just saying that out loud. And we do and attend, all of the unifieds, and we go to you, we'd love for you to come to us, and in each of those scenarios a video is important. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
I think you did to some extent. But, and also, are you keeping virtual auditions at all? Do you know, is that something moving forward, that there's going to be some element of virtual audition?
Yeah, I think we are. We've had a great time, and a fantastic opportunity to get to know folks. I think it works well on both ends in terms of accessibility. We have seen some really successful auditions, and it's fun to see folks in their own environments. In some case,
Mhm.
I had a auditionee um, perform in front of this pile of wood, and they were in Vermont, and that began and sparked this brand new conversation about
Not sparked. Can't spark the wood.
it was
Come on.
just it was you had to do
A
it.
forest fire of knowledge. It's great.
Forest of love. But it opened up a whole conversation about like, okay, so like when you're not performing musical theater, you're clearly gathering wood. I mean, like that's interesting. You get to just know people in a different way. In that case, if that person brought their pile of wood to UArts, they would be kicked out immediately. So
I'm a huge Survivor fan. This happened to me in the pandemic, and so I've never done reality TV, but I've done it. But I always now feel like these those are like audition videos when they make their little like, here's me in the pool, here's me in the whatever. It's like that's sort of a little like, tell me a bit about yourself with your background.
that's right. I mean, and we do to some degree. I also love Survivor. My husband and I totally into it. Season 42. Okay.
Come on. I got
Uh,
Omer and I got Linz. Those are my top two. Anyway.
Absolutely. For Omer to get
By the
as
time
far
this
as
is coming out, they'll both be voted out. Let's be honest.
Yeah, no, but I don't know. I think Omer is unvote outable. Like he's sort of made enough inroads to people that I'm like, no one's really paying attention. But this is important information though, because this is the kind of human interaction that I find interesting, where it's not on the page. There's no coach that prepared you to have a conversation about Survivor. But if there is something on your heart that you are feeling, if there is a new T Swift album out, if there is something that is burning inside for you to say it in the room, and not in some performative way, but in a like real genuine way. Oh my gosh, we love it, because then you're just showing that not only are you listening to the world, but you are able to wear your art. You're able to be fully who you are with all of these tenets to you. Here's this random TV show, but it's something that you're into. And that's really what I want.
To put it out there, right? It takes a confidence to be able to say, I'm not just looking for what you're hoping that you'll like this, but this is me. And if you hate Survivor and you think it's weird that I like reality TV, well then that's fine. Then I'm not for you. Right? There's a confidence that's very attractive in being able to say, I'm articulating myself as I am.
That's what we want. I mean, we all ask, and when I say all, I mean all of these other BFA programs, I'm sure, ask similar questions. But what I like to do is be as transparent as possible and say, here's my question and here's why I'm asking about it. And one of our questions is something like, if we gave you $1 bazillion, what would you want to make with that, right? Because that will then tell us what they're thinking about. It could be a revival of something. It could be a brand new musical based on a comic book they're listening to. And the ultimate goal right there is passion. I want you to speak passionately about something. So you could be talking about your dog or your love of tomatoes. I mean, the content does not matter. What matters is that little fire that's inside. That's like, oh my gosh, no one's ever asked me this. You know what? Actually, I love this random play that no one has ever produced, or this random musical. And I'm telling you right there, that is an accept. That
now we're back to the fire and the spark and the wood. It's just a beautiful metaphor here.
We need to redesign our logo.
This is bringing back to my favorite question, which is, I always like to ask, like, in your estimate, and you're sort of, as you're taking a student and you're saying, you said this is now an accept, how much of that is based on the skill displayed in the monologue, songs, dance, versus these intangibles, versus the interview and the adjustment and how they walk in the room and say hello, any of the other aspects of an audition?
Yeah, I would say we take very seriously this idea of being a 4-year conservatory style BFA. We know that when folks come in here, they do need to have some level or understanding of like basic foundational musical or even movement knowledge. And more than that, we know they also need to express and be able to articulate that passion. So I'm not sure what the percentage is, but there is a standard when it comes to the rigor and expectations that we have of our students. And that if somebody is an amazing, talented person, they're coming in here with all that, and they're in a unable to kind of really talk about why they love it, it's a hard
Mm-hmm.
sell. If someone
Mm-hmm.
has like the complete opposite, can totally sell it and has no skill, like really no skill, or
Mm-hmm.
can't really connect the pitch to the accompanist, that's a really hard sell.
Mm-hmm.
What I can find is someone who has the potential for uh, engaging in and learning, and a curiosity about these various skills, and also can articulate what their vision is for themselves or the world, or themselves in the world. That is a easy. That's like a
I love it.
absolutely.
And how does that work then with your school in terms of academics? If you like the student artistically, is there any bar to academics in terms of what they need to have, or how does that work with the sort of deliberative body of the school itself?
Yeah, they do need to have some sort. There is, and I don't have that number in front of me, but there is. They do have to turn in transcripts. They do have to sort of reach the bar of that standard. Our focus here is on, in many ways, in our situation, on the art, but they do have to take critical studies classes. They have to be able to sort of demonstrate a sense of ability to
Mm-hmm.
write and to communicate. Um, but the emphasis, I mean, a lot of reasons why people come here is because it is, you are every single semester you are here taking theater courses and musical theater
Mm-hmm.
courses. You are singing every semester. You are on
Mm-hmm.
stage in some form or fashion. So it is a real appeal to folks.
I love it. I want to ask maybe two more questions, and then I don't know, I got to let you go. First, what inspired you to start this podcast? So this podcast really seems like it's for, especially maybe for musical theater educators to listen to, though, of course, we could kind of kibitz in and see what's going on in the musical theater education world. Tell me a little bit about the pod and how you started it.
Yeah, so Matthew Teague Miller, we call him Matty Teague Miller, who's at Chico State, and I are good friends. We met each other during as serving as leaders in the Musical Theater Educators Alliance uh, organization. This is an organization I've worked with for the last 6 years, and separately from that, but sort of inspired by that, is this idea, or this interest in talking, this interest in having a conversation about what other professors are doing,
Mm-hmm.
what's happening in different classes, at Texas State or at Hart, or in these schools, Carnegie Mellon, and to sort of, we wanted to just interview and talk to our friends who are doing this. So we know that it's pretty niche. This is not something that my mom listens to, because she's like, okay, but I'm not really interested in that. But this is something that a musical theater educator, or someone who's interested in becoming an educator, or even, as I know, as a director choreographer, when I'm working in the world, I also find myself teaching in that space as well. So folks that do find themselves in leadership kind of positions, it's a great way for them to join the conversations, to join the community. We did an interview with Caitlin Hopkins from Texas State. This is like our most recent, list. We chatted with Laura Reichard from Theatrical Intimacy Education. And our next episode is with the writing team, the producers, the writing team of Between the Lines, which is coming to New York off Broadway. So Timothy McDonald, Sam Solon Anderson, and Jodi Picoult. So we're talking with creatives, but about education, and about like why it's important to know how to learn how to work on a new work, or what in their particular case, the pandemic, how that affected their work. They're now bringing
Mm-hmm.
it back in. What do our students need to do? How do we need to teach our students differently for an audition for you? Right. That's sort of what that conversation's about.
So cool. And we love a niche pod. I have two niche podcasts. I have this and I have a Survivor podcast. My family listened to none of it. Literally zero episodes, and nobody's interested in my life except these weird niches. It's the way of the world here. We want
It's the way of the
specific.
world. I mean, here's the thing. I will also say I began as a huge podcast fan. I mean, listen to many of them, and I like trying on new ones, and like I like putting one on, walking the dog, living my life. So this is just
Mhm.
another. It's really the language I speak, which is why it all added up to clicking in and posting.
I love that answer because it does it's the same thing for me in terms of, it's like the advice we took in theater school, but podcast didn't really exist when I was going to theater school. It's like, go make the things that you're actually interested in. And I found myself an avid podcast fan. I'm like, well, then I should do it. I should make a podcast. I'm like, if I love it, I'm going to have a say on it more than I will on some other art form that I'm not as excited about.
That's right.
My last question is just if you have any advice to a prospective student, or if we haven't talked a lot about parents or prospective parent within the process as well. If they're listening to this, and let's imagine they're really just beginning their journey. So for the poor seniors, but you're maybe a rising senior at this point, or finishing your junior year, and you're reading about this school, and you're listening to this podcast, or on the website, you're starting to look at UArts. What's the advice that you would give to that parent or to that student?
Yeah, I would. The advice I would give is to start as early as you are able to do the research that I know that you're doing, um, to to visit if that is at all possible. I think that being in the space, being at all, seeing the studios, if there's a world where it lines up that you're able to join a school for a special event like a Kristen Chenoweth masterclass or even a performance opportunity, I would try to line that up as in your education of yourself, just to sort of see the kinds of things that are happening in the schools. And I think a great pathway is to talk to folks that are either graduating from or seniors in these various schools, right? So what is typically forward facing is you're going to see my face on the website, you're going to have my email. Please reach out and ask questions, but the real answers that you're going to need or want are those ones from the students who just are graduating, who are just completing, or who have recently graduated. I have found great success in that way. And then I also will say, we, as I mentioned earlier, these BFA leaders talk to each other. We know each other, and I know there's amazing things happening in all of these schools. So
Mm.
if we aren't the right school for you, I'd love to sit down and talk about what might be a good fit for you based on the knowledge that I have, or just refer you to some of our other amazing programs. We also know that not every program is for you. So I'm going to
Mhm.
tell you what's happening here in Philadelphia, and also sort of paint a couple pictures for you if you want.
So cool. Well, if people want to follow you, they certainly can do at University of the Arts, right? Is
That's
that
right.
the best social for UArts? And then what if they want to follow you directly? We can do at Carefully Taught Podcast if they want to check out that pod.
That's right.
And then at Kikau Town. Am I
That's
getting
right.
that right for your Instagram?
That is correct. I was obsessed when I was younger with the idea and branding of Cheesecake Factory. I always thought you go to Cheesecake Factory and you can't not get a cheesecake, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I just was like, okay, well, what if I was a place like Kikau Town, Dollywood? That's really what that is. And I just thought
That's incredible.
this is where
Kikau
that
Town.
exists. Kikau Town and captures the all the things. I
Well,
also
it's
would
perfect because
recommend.
I'm at Charlieville, so that's
Yeah.
perfect. You can
Wait,
throw
is
that
that
out there if you want.
serious?
No, that's a joke.
Oh my God! Oh my God! That is, we would
Like
have
this
a
is
whole little.
Survivor, and now this, we really are
We have a
aligned.
whole community. I would also say for folks to add at the Brind School, so
Mm-hmm.
University of the Arts is our main thing, but if you add at the Brind School, you can get connected to all of the recent performances and things that we have going on as well.
Love it. And we will have all that in our show notes for people to click on just to make it that much easier. Kikau, this was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for the time.
Charlieville, I can't believe it. Can't believe you lied to me. No, thank you. I really appreciate it. This is really great.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Kikau. What a wise and thoughtful man he is. I just want to take a short dive into something he mentioned at the top of the interview, which I think is really key for students at this time of year, which is that idea of curriculum being the differentiator from school to school. And obviously, there are many factors that differentiate, right? But I think this is such a key one. And it's one that families sometimes jump past since it takes a bit of digging to figure it out. It's not an easy answer here when you talk about curriculum. When you're trying to discover what priorities a school puts artistically or academically, Sometimes they'll put it right out there in the top of their website or as a mission statement. Like a school might say, we believe in acting as the foundation of all musical theater training. Or we believe that academics are just as important as your discipline training because we believe in well-rounded artists, right? Those are excellent to read and clock for yourselves. But the best way to actually see what each school prioritizes is seeing where they spend their actual credit hours. Each school should have available some kind of sample curriculum, right? It may not be for all 4 years, and it may not be readily available online. You may have to actually reach out and ask can I see a sample freshman curriculum? But it'll give you some idea of how they're going to handle their artistic and academic training. They won't always give you the detailed understanding of what each class is. For instance, one school's Acting 1 might vary significantly from another school's Acting 1. Or it also won't give you any kind of qualitative information, right? But it will give you that quantitative understanding of where the school is spending their hours. If a school is giving you nothing but academics 2 days a week versus another school who gives you a 2-hour chunk on Tuesdays and Thursdays to fill in your elective, those are very different academic experiences. But those schools might both narratively say and truly believe something like, academics are important and we want to encourage you to minor when you can. So the school could really mean that, but look at that difference in terms of 2 full days versus 2 hours on 2 days. Similarly, some schools may have you dancing 5 times a week. Others might have you dancing 3 times a week. Some schools might have you acting 3 times a week for 3 hours at a time, where others, it's 90 minutes twice a week. For those who are doing quick math at home, that's 3 times the amount of acting class at the first school versus the second school. And this is where you can start to see schools that are similar to each other, right? They may be modeled under similar mind frames because you'll see kind of similar patterns of curriculum from school to school. If you know your own priorities already, this can really help you shape your list and make sure if acting is the most important thing to you, let's have a lot of those schools that are spending a lot of curricular acting hours. If things are a little murkier on that side of things for you, this is a great way to explore what different curriculums might make sense to you. So imagine at school 1, what this curriculum might go from acting here, and then I go to voice class, and then I do this, versus this school where I do academics there's part of the day, and then I do my artistic stuff. See what it might be like for you. And you can kind of say, does that feel more like a me, or does this one feel more like a me? And just like with a company that states its priorities, but you might kind of want to audit their books to see where they're actually spending their money, this is a great way to cut through the narrative schools will talk about. So they'll say what their priorities are, and you can just get right to the brass tacks of what they actually think is the most important in terms of where they spend their hours. If you enjoyed spending this hour with us and you want to hear more, please hit that subscribe button. We'd also appreciate you if you were to rate and review us wherever you found us. I suggest 5 stars if you believe in jinxes, and an ironic 5 stars if you think this is all a simulation anyway. You can also reach out to us with questions for the pod at mailbag@mappingthecollegeaudition.com or harass me on all social platforms. I'm at Charmer7. If you're interested in working with MTCA for help with your individual prep, please check us out at mtcollegeauditions.com or follow us on all our social platforms. To my young artists out there mapping their journeys, try having a human experience in all aspects of your life. I highly recommend it. We'll see you next week.
Mapping the